Hi knob tweakers, and welcome to Top 5 Friday, a safe space for music producers to indulge their love of plugins judgment-free. I'm Tim Cant, and as you can see, I've come out of my cage and I've been doing just fine. And this time we're going to be looking at 5 of the most intriguing equalizer effects available to humanity. So if you're into type L's, you are in the right place. As always, let us know in the comments if you've got a hot take on any hidden gems we might have missed. We kick off with the erudite Sonnox Oxford Dynamic EQ. Then we get bendy with SplineEQ. Next, it's Tube Tech Equalizer Collection. DMG Audio's Equilibrium is our runner-up, and naturally the mighty Pro Q2 takes the top spot. First up, Sonnox Oxford Dynamic EQ. Everybody should have at least one dynamic EQ in their collection. We reckon it should be this one. If you're not familiar with dynamic EQ, imagine that every band has its own compressor/expansion settings, and you're basically there. With so much movement going on, you need an EQ you can trust. And Sonnox's EQ pedigree makes this a dependable plugin. You get 5 bands of their Oxford Type 3 EQ filters, which offer proportional Q and a choice of onset and peak detection features. Oxford Dynamic EQ includes a listen mode where you can audition only the audio that's being processed, making it easy to make changes to the dynamic controls. Okay, so dynamic EQ probably isn't the sort of thing you're going to be using all the time, but it can come in really handy for specific situations. And one thing you can use it for is kind of taking a bit of harshness out of the sounds. Now, this lovely pad sample I've got here. It's nice, and I like the end portion of it. I like the harmonic content in there, but it's a bit harsh in the sort of 2,000 to 3,000 hertz range. Now what we can use dynamic EQ to do is to attenuate a bit of that harshness at the start, but when the level's lower at the end, it's not going to mess with any of those lovely harmonics and preserve them. So let's have a play. Now we can see from the clever animated graphic what's going on here. When the sound is loud in this region, it's going to get more attenuated. We can also solo it and just listen to this frequency. We have your typical kind of compressor controls here. You've got a threshold. Your dynamics, which is basically a controls how much effect the effect has. So there, it's basically the dry signal and totally wet. And as you can hear, we've taken a little bit of the harshness off. So let's check out what it sounds like bypassing it. I feel like I want to mess with it a bit more. So there you have it. Bit of a nicer, smoother sound for you there. 4, SplineEQ by Photosounder. It's not new, but SplineEQ is a unique EQ that uses Bezier splines to set its curves, meaning that you can have asymmetric or even practically vertical curves. SplineEQ's visualizer displays frequencies in a more musical way and lets you visualize your cuts and boosts above and below the curve. There are also loads of useful EQ features, such as transpose and overall gain to move the entire curve up or down in frequency or gain. SplineEQ's maximum boost is an alarming 60 dB, meaning that this is one powerful sonic superweapon. Okay, you can do some things with SplineEQ that you can't really do as effectively with other types of EQ. And my favourite is to bring out the grittiness of sampled breakbeats. So let's have a listen to this break. I'm pretty sure you'll never have heard this before. Okay, so that's a pretty standard resampled Amen. It's come out of a real sampler and everything. It's got some nice grit in there that we can bring out with Spline. So let's have a play with it. Ooh, just listen to that grit. Now, you might think, hey, what's the big deal, guy? But listen to what happens if we use FabFilter to try and achieve the same effect. Almost there, not quite. So why is Spline EQ called Spline EQ? Well, spline is a portmanteau word of spooky line. So look at these spooky lines here. You can change their curve shapes with these lovely Bezier things. Ooh! So yeah, if you want to get in there and get really textural with it, then Spline EQ is a good way to go. At 3, the TubeTech Equalizer Collection by Softube. We could do an EQ roundup without including an archaic piece of hardware, or classic as some people would call it. The Pultec EQP18 hardware EQ might just be the most modelled EQ of all time thanks to its tube tone and legendary reputation. Softube's PE1C is just such a plugin, and it's available as part of the Softube TubeTech Equalizer Collection and also their Complete Collection. The TubeTech Equalizer Collection also includes the ME1B, which provides control over frequencies that the PE1C cannot adjust. Technically, the PE1C is a software emulation of the TubeTech PE1C hardware, which is an emulation of the original EQP1A. But don't let these layers of abstraction get you down. Beneath it all, TubeTech is a great sounding couch EQ that lets you pull off the classic Pultec technique, both cutting and boosting the low band at the same time, to get a solid sounding bottom end. Okay, so much has been made of the ability of Pultec style EQs to get a really nice bottom end sound. Let's see how it works in practice. It's really rather simple. In the PE1C, you have a low frequency section and a high frequency section. In the low frequency section, we have a boost knob and an attenuation knob. So the boost boosts the low end and the attenuation cuts the low end. And there's also a center frequency. And these boost attenuation frequencies are offset so that they don't cancel each other out. And also the boost is kind of like a low shelf. So let's hear how that sounds in action on this simple little Reese I've made. So yeah, very simple way to put beef into your low-end sounds there. Number 2, Equilibrium by DMG Audio. If you love using classic EQs, and if you love getting anal about filtering, Equilibrium is the one for you. The idea behind this plugin is that you can mix and match bands using circuit models of classic filters. Equilibrium has 19 bell filters, 10 high and low pass types, 8 shelves and 1 notch. Each of them can process 2-channel stereo as normal, or mid, sides, left or right signals. This plugin also comes equipped with a piano keyboard display to help locate specific note frequencies, and has a ton of view options. Comprehensive! DMG Audio Equilibrium is one of the most involved EQ plugins I've ever seen. There's so many different modes and stuff here. It's crazy. There's, yeah, I mean, it feels like it knocks everything else into a cocked hat in those sort of terms. So I don't have time to show you all that stuff. I'm going to show you a technique that you might find useful with this plugin and other plugins that have mid-side EQing capability. So if you listen to a little pad sound we've got here. It's pretty nice. A bit tricky to mix though, because there is a lot of kind of like low rumbling movement that pans around. The way we can deal with that and make this sound a bit easier to mix is to set our group to side. So now it's just affecting the side signal. And then let's change this to our high pass filter. Oh, let's go for Legendre? Okay, whatever. So yeah, well, that looks nice enough. So we'll play our sounds. We'll turn this up. Now this reduces the stereo movement rumble at the bottom. And as we take it all the way up, you can see that the sound becomes mono because all the side signal is being filtered out. Mono signal there. You can kind of choose the width as to the frequency spectrum there. Number 1, Pro Q2 by FabFilter. Of course, it's the king and the queen of EQ plugins. Pro Q2 has mind-boggling potential in terms of EQ functionality, and it's also easy to use thanks to its sensibly designed interface. So what can Pro Q2 do that makes it the winner? Well, it has up to 24 bands with 8 types of filter each, sidechain functionality, EQ matching, linear phase, natural phase, and zero latency modes, left, right, and mid-side operation, a piano keyboard along the x-axis, analyzer, freezer, and spectrum grab, and a full screen mode, all of which make Pro Q2 both a thing of beauty and a surgical superweapon. Suck it to me! So of course, FabFilter Pro Q2, an absolutely fantastic equalizer plugin. It's easy to use, it's deep, it's a feature packed. I'm just gonna show you my 3 favorite things about this plugin right now. So, obviously a lovely spectral display. That's not it though. Check this out. If we click this little button here, look at that. I am in awe at the size of this interface. So the full screen mode is really, really handy. It looks really great with the lovely spectral analyzer there. Here's another little thing that I like that you can do. If you put your cursor over the spectral analyzer, you can grab a representation of the frequency response and tweak it to your needs, which is really helpful and looks cool. And the other thing I like about FabFilter is the fact you can get very, very tight with those filter cuts. And you can do that with the bells as well. Look at these. Look at these interesting shapes that you one day might need in your productions. So yes, FabFilter Pro Q2, the boss of equalizer plugins. So there we have it, gang. We've solved the mysterious case of which equalizer plugins are best. So if you like the sound of any of those, check out the demo links in the info below. We'll be back soon with more DSP-based fun. Ta-ra!